protest. I believe they'll be reassured if we have a clear statement that no UK taxpayers' money can be misused by security forces in Nigeria or in any circumstances deployed on activities which suppress peaceful protests. My third question for ministers is what representations they have or are prepared to make to the Nigerian government about human rights abuses against Christians. Charities such as Christian Solidarity Worldwide and Open Doors have documented a worrying increase in attacks on Christian communities in Nigeria by terrorist groups over recent years, and their plight must never be forgotten. Fourthly and finally, I would ask ministers to step up engagement with the Nigerian diaspora in the United Kingdom. There are many British Nigerians who want to deploy their knowledge and their understanding of the country to help shape the UK's response to unfolding events in Nigeria. Worried about the situation and distressed about the Lekki Tollgate tragedy and other loss of life, they're brimming with enthusiasm to help, to make a difference, and to be involved in building a better future for Nigeria. In this regard, I particularly want to thank my constituent, Lara Ayodeji Akindeji, for contacting me to share her concerns and offer her help. Her support and briefing for this debate has been invaluable. So my final request would be to ask the Minister to meet me and a group of constituents to discuss these matters further. Mr. Gray, Nigeria is a country with so much going for it. A young and hugely talented population, massive natural resources, and a rapidly developing economy. If the End SARS protesters secured the reform and the improved governance they're demanding, Nigeria could become a formidable economic powerhouse. And the diaspora community here can be a vital bridge linking our two countries in a brighter future of increased trade and prosperity in the years to come. Thank you.
This House considered E-petition 554150 related to Nigeria and the sanctions regime. Kate Osama.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I thank the honourable member for Chipping and Barnett for her passionate opening for this debate. I would also like to thank Silas Oja for creating this petition, which now has more than 220,000 signatures, including almost 2,000 of my own constituents in Edmonton who signed the petition we are debating today. And I'm sure that I'm not the only member to have been inundated with messages from constituents in recent months, urging them to do whatever they can to lend their voice to the End SARS protests. As the chair of the All-Party Group for Nigeria, I was particularly keen to speak on this debate and highlight the need for the UK to stand with the Nigerian people against an increasingly cruel and brutal regime. The situation in Nigeria is incredibly serious, with tragedy after tragedy unfolding on the streets in state after state, as the Nigerian government and its security forces take ever more repressive measures to end a protest movement, which has given hope to millions across the globe. The End SARS movement is not just about disbanding the special anti-robbery squads. It is a movement led by the youth of Nigeria who took to the streets of Nigeria peacefully, demanding an end to brutality, extortion, and extrajudicial executions, and for a truly democratic Nigeria. The bravery of the youth-led movement will never be defeated. Today, we need to consider how the government should respond to both the movement itself and the violent actions of the Nigerian regime. However, weak and timid statements. It is therefore a gift to the Nigerian government when our government fails to explicitly condemn the Nigerian regime for killing its own citizens. So will the Minister today finally condemn the Nigerian regime for its part in the Tollgate massacre and the continued killing of peaceful protesters in Nigeria? Mr. Gray, the Nigerian government says that it has disbanded SARS, but the corruption and brutality of the security forces continues. The Nigerian government's violence against its own citizens appears only to be intensifying. The Nigerian government needs to stop freezing bank accounts of key protesters. It needs to stop illegal detentions of key protesters. The Minister of Information for the federal government went on record to state the CNN reporting of the massacre is, and I quote, fake news. This is undemocratic conduct, and it really needs to be called out. So I ask that the Minister uses this opportunity to end the UK government's neutrality on this issue. The UK must never be neutral when it comes to human rights abuses. Are the rights and needs and dreams of young Nigerian people not the same as those that are here in the UK? The UK should not be a safe haven for anyone who denies their own citizens the same freedoms they come to enjoy in the UK. Mr. Gray, all too often, when a repressive regime is targeted with economic sanctions, it is the civilians who pay the price, while the regime itself becomes more entrenched and less open to change. But the UK government can use the sanctions under the global human rights regime, which targets individuals involved in human rights violations and abuses. So, if the UK's position is a global force of good, then I ask the UK government to add the names of the Nigerian government and the security services to the designated list of those responsible for the worst human rights abuses. As I come to a close, it is time for the UK to change course and stand in solidarity with those fighting for a new Nigeria. Let's stand together. Let's get rid of corruption, extortion, extrajudicial murders and massacres, because it's time for a new Nigeria. And I thank you.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Mr. Gray, for calling me to speak. And I must say it's a pleasure to follow my honourable friend, the Honourable Lady for Edmonton, who speaks quite rightly with great passion about one of the great countries in this world that is sadly being racked by violence, and violence against young people. Now, I would argue that the greatest book in the English language, and I know there may be some debate about this, but the greatest book in the English language is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, the great Nigerian writer. And the beauty of that book is the way it explains the challenge of changing generations to live together, and the way it speaks about values falling away and community being eroded by outside pressure. What we're seeing in Nigeria today is part of that story. It's a tragedy that we are watching. It's a tragedy that we are all witnessing, because as we see things falling apart, the pressure this time is not foreign colonial taken from the Nigerian people and hidden their ill-gotten gains here. We know that our banks, sadly, have been used for that profit and for that illegal transfer of assets. And that means that the UK is in an almost unique position in being able to actually do something to really exert pressure on those who have robbed the Nigerian people. Now, this puts a particular onus on the Minister, and I know my right honourable friend knows it, that using Magnitsky sanctions today isn't just about protecting Nigeria, although it is. It's not just about respecting Nigerian young people who have been robbed and murdered by these SARS units. It's actually about protecting the United Kingdom, because what happens in Nigeria matters fundamentally to us here. This is the third country of the Commonwealth. This is a country of 200 million people. It is going to be the great economic powerhouse of Africa and one of the great economic powerhouses of the world. This is a country whose wealth, not just in the oil off the river state, but in the imagination and creativity of its people, is witnessed every day in Nollywood, and perhaps more my style, at the great University of Jos. This is a country that gives so much to the world already, despite the fact that it is ill-governed, brutalised and robbed. Just imagine what it could give if the Plateau State wasn't a scene of conflict and anti-SARS movements, but instead was the global centre of learning that it really, truly could be, and indeed was, up until the 1960s. So look, this is an opportunity for the UK to do something real, not just in the interest of Nigerians, though it would be, not just in the interest of Africans, though it would be that too, but fundamentally in the interests of the British people. This is a moment when these petitioners have got it absolutely right. They are not just arguing for the rights of young Nigerians who are claiming their own rights. They are arguing for the rights of Democrats, of free people, and of honourable people everywhere. And I hope that my right honourable friend and her colleague, the Secretary of State, will listen, will look at the sanctions regime and choose very carefully where they apply.
Thank you, Mr Gray. It's a pleasure to speak in this meaningful debate and to follow the honourable member for Tunbridge and Malling. The events surrounding the NSAS protest in Nigeria has caused global concern and outcry. Last month, mainly young Nigerian people took to the streets in a peaceful protest against police brutality. And on the 20th of October in Lagos and in other parts of the nation, the military are alleged to have attacked peaceful protesters with disproportionate force and have killed and injured civilians. The world watched the horrific videos. The world saw the awful pictures from the scene. The world heard the eyewitness accounts from survivors who managed to escape the horrors of that night. Human rights agencies such as Amnesty International have supported these claims. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Nigerian government and military initially denied that the military were at Lekki and labelled the events as fake news. Media companies received a memorandum from the Nigerian National Broadcasting Commission to silence them, not to embarrass individuals, organisations, government, cause disaffection or panic to the society at large, following reporting on the events of that dreadful night. Consequently, some media houses who did report on the events were fined. The bank accounts of some organisers involved in the protests have been frozen by the Central Nigerian Bank pending investigations. Some organisers involved in the protests have been arrested or harassed by the authorities. These actions equate to the preventing and indeed stopping free speech and the right to peaceful protest by the state, and this is unacceptable. Peaceful protests are vital to the functioning democracy and are a fundamental human right. These rights should be upheld and respected. Many of my constituents who have a Nigerian background are in great distress. Those that have relatives and friends in Nigeria are concerned about the safety of their loved ones and have contacted me about this situation. I indeed have close friends in Nigeria who are also deeply concerned and have contacted me about this. They all ask for one simple thing: that the UK government defends the right to peaceful protest and free speech and ensures that those within the Nigerian government and army are held to account for the atrocities committed against peaceful dignity must face sanctions.
Right.
I'm very grateful, Mr Gray. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and it's really good to see you looking so well. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member too from Chipping Barnet for introducing this debate, for her passion, and also to all of my honourable friends, also for their passion, their expertise, and their clear demands that we're making today in this chamber. And it's good to hear that the demands are unanimously held across what is sometimes a divide. As we know, the SARS police unit was suspected of abuses against thousands of innocent Nigerians over the past 28 years. It's sadly clear that Nigeria does have a serious problem with abuses of state power and with corruption which goes way beyond SARS. The protest movement that we are seeing rise in Nigeria wants all of these abuses addressed. SARS and other police forces were well known for targeting young people, for arrests, extortions, beatings, almost at random. I'm told If you're young, if you have the wrong hairstyle or clothes, or if you're driving a car and playing music, you could be targeted. Your money and your possessions could be seized with no evidence, and people know if you resist, you will be beaten and possibly killed. SARS created an environment of fear and injustice, and until the protest, there was no real sign that those in power were listening or prepared to act. It appears to be, sadly, just the same with many other issues in Nigerian society. There's terrible unemployment, there's little access to healthcare and to education, and a poverty rate as high as 70%, according to Oxfam. The people of Nigeria have the right to come together and call for an end to those injustices. But as we know, in recent months, their peaceful, powerful actions have been met with horrific violence. Amnesty says that at least 56 people were killed during the recent protests, including at least 10 in Lekki. I've been fortunate enough to hear from a young journalist with direct knowledge of what happened at the Lekki Tollgate. And she told me, and I'm going to read out her words. She said, and I quote, "It was devastating, something you don't want to imagine. The protesters did not know that the cameras and the lights were going to be removed. There were no cameras to witness anything. And then, as we've heard today, the soldiers opened fire on the crowd of protesters, and my contact said one of the survivors jumped in the water, but the soldiers kept on shooting. For days after, a friend of mine didn't come online because of the shock and the fear, and it took him a long time to come to Facebook and to say, thank God I survived. I did not think I was going to." She said, "Someone else I know left the toll gate with a bullet in him, and later they moved all the bodies so that there would be no evidence. For them to close their hearts and kill protesters like that is simply unforgivable." The response from the authorities who feel threatened by the protests has been insidious, as we've heard. Media agencies have been fined for telling the truth. Bank accounts of activists have been suspended because supposedly they finance terrorism. And government spokespeople have even blamed the protesters for a rise in food prices. Those in power will clearly do anything at all to ensure that the movement ends now and that SARS is technically disbanded. Those in power are terrified that the calls for action on corruption and police brutality will go on and on. My plea to the Minister today is that we stand with the young people of Nigeria who are demanding change far beyond the closure of SARS. What they are demanding is a future worthy of their courage and their leadership. And here in the UK, we need that too, because Nigeria is a massive, fast-growing, youthful country. It has massive potential. It's a country that will have a leading role in decades to come, not just within Africa, but in our world. And for that positive leadership to happen, that sense of justice that motivates the End SARS protest must prevail to shape Nigeria's future and our future too. So, Minister, I don't think that words from the government today are going to be enough, because I think we've got to show our solidarity, demonstrate it, by identifying and targeting those that we know are responsible for terrible violence and abuses that the activists have faced. The least we should do is to make sure that those who have murdered Nigerians and deprived them of their human rights aren't able to benefit from trade or travel to the UK. In my view, that should include the leaders of the government and the military who are even now, refusing to allow transparent and fair investigations to happen and for justice to be implemented. What I want to hear from the Minister today is that a list of Majinsky, I never say that word properly, sanctions is being created and action against those on that list taken in weeks and not years. Our role in this must be, I think, to work with all that we can to identify those responsible and ensure justice is done. And I would be so very grateful if on this occasion the government acts decisively.
Thank you, Mr. Gray, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship and to follow the honourable member for West Ham who spoke so passionately for justice for Nigerians. I would also like to thank the member for Chipping Barnett for securing this very important debate. Now, this, of course, was a popular debate and it's unfortunately execution throughout the End SARS protests. The reason the world knows about the violent attacks on Nigerian protesters is because civilians on the Lekki Tollgate massacre bravely risked their own lives to post these videos on social media. Only a few Nigerian news outlets even reported these stories, and they were all subsequently fined before the Nigerian government denied the attack's existence and began silencing reporters. Agencies and individuals have since blamed one another. No one seems to be taking the responsibility. Nigerian civilians risked everything to give themselves a voice, and that they used to expose the atrocities inflicted upon them. And today, 4,000 miles away, the Nigerian government is strangling that voice with a proposed social media censorship bill. We must demand transparency of what is happening to civilians and amplify that news using our platform. We must continue to seek clarity on what happened on October the 20th, when power was cut from the Lekki Tollgate and SARS police forces began spraying protesters gathering there with bullets. Now, I'm sure that many of us have seen the footage of peaceful protesters linked armed in arms, singing the Nigerian anthem as they were indiscriminately gunned down. Now.
Thank you, Mr. Gray, for chairing this debate, and it's an honour to follow my honourable friend for Coventry and North West. I also like to thank the honourable member for Chipping Barnett for putting forward this debate in response to the petition which calls for sanctions against the Nigerian government and officials. It's a very timely debate that needs to be had. The atrocities that we have seen in Nigeria in recent months are understandably very concerning for my constituents. I know many of my constituents who have friends and relatives in Nigeria and want to see our government help ensure their safety. I firmly believe that we have an obligation to condemn violence and human rights abuses where we see them, which is why I have publicly condemned the violence that took place on the 20th of October when young people's rights to protest were tragically suppressed. In Erith and Thamesmead, 4,469 people have signed this petition that we are here to debate today. This is the highest amount of petitioners across the constituency seats. I have been contacted individually by dozens of people who want to see action to ensure that human rights are upheld in Nigeria. Accountability is the cornerstone of democracy, and I was pleased to see the Minister of Africa write to me to confirm that the UK government will continue to work with the Nigerian government and international and civil society partners in support of police reform. However, it is clear that suitable methods of accountability have not been implemented. It was just yesterday that the Nigerian military admitted that soldiers fired live bullets at anti-SARS protesters on October 20th. However, there is still no confirmation about the number of young protesters who have tragically lost their lives. According to Nigerian officials, 2 young people were killed in the shooting, but reports by Amnesty claim there are 10 lives that were lost. How can this be considered appropriate accountability if we cannot even reach a consensus on the amount of lives taken at Lekki Toll Plaza in Lagos in October. I do not believe placing economic countrywide sanctions in Nigeria will help address these ongoing issues of police and military violence. In the first instance, the UK government should be calling for an independent investigation into the allegations of misconduct by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Organisations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, who have been following the abuses that have taken place in Nigeria for years, should be consulted in their evidence and collated alongside an independent investigation to form a judicial review. Furthermore, the investigation should look at wider issues of violence and human rights abuses by military and police across Nigeria. Mr. Gray, the UK government should regard the findings of an independent investigation with the utmost seriousness and take action to implement sanctions across individuals identified as being responsible to the atrocities that have taken place. They should also make appropriate adjustments to the overseas military security and justice assistance funding and training of any Nigerian military, security and policing organisations which may have committed violations in line with the government's own guidance to ensure OSJA funding meets our human rights obligations and our values. Mr. Gray, this issue does not begin and end at Lekki Toll Plaza on October the 20th. There have been reports of violence by Special Anti-Robbery Squad since 2017, and there continue to be serious consequences as a result of protests which took place earlier this year. Young people have reported intimidation by the Nigerian government following protests, and as mentioned by a number of my colleagues, there have been reports of bank accounts frozen, social media banned, and people being detained in prison for their involvement in speaking out against police violence. These actions are unacceptable in democracy and claims of accountability for its wrongdoings. No action can replace the lives that have already been lost, but that does not mean that we cannot take action. I hope at the end of this debate we will get a commitment from the Minister that the UK will follow up their actions to hold officials in Nigeria responsible. Mr. Gray, I finally want to take this opportunity to raise the case of Nigerian DJ and songwriter DJ Switch, who has had her life threatened for her role in speaking out against military and police violence. The prominence of young Nigerian females at the forefront of NSAR's protests has highlighted the need for more action to taken to end violence against women and girls in Nigeria. Will the government take this opportunity to ensure that these actions in upholding human rights around the world extend to protecting women and girls against violence? Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Alan Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship and a pleasure also to take part in such a cross-party consensual discussion, and glad to hear some excellent contributions from honourable and right honourable members across the House this evening about events in Nigeria. I'd also add my warm congratulations to the right honourable member for Chipping Barnett on bringing this forward and the drafters of this petition. I'd above all else, though, commend the NSARS movement, which I think has done so much to shine a bright light on the corruption and oppressive practices of the regime in Lagos. And I've read the government's response to the petition carefully, and I have some concerns. Nigeria is not a far-off place of which we know nothing. The UK has clear links to this issue and clear links to Nigeria, both historically and going forward. We have influence, and we could use a lot more of it. Now, we do know that the UK did fund, did supply equipment, did train police and paramilitary forces, which we now know have been involved in abuses. At the very least, surely, we need an urgent review of the UK's involvement in those programmes, and I'd be glad of an undertaking from the Minister this evening that such a review is underway. On the Magnitsky sanctions which have been called for, I quote directly from the government's response to the petition, this sanctions regime will give the UK a powerful new tool to hold to account those involved in serious human rights violations or abuses. I've yet to hear any member of this House speak against the Magnitsky regime. We all support it. But it's only a tool if it's used. Now, I appreciate that speculation is unhelpful, but we do need some announcements, surely. I'm glad that the Minister for Africa, in his discussion with the Governor of Lagos on the 11th of November, called for an investigation into the specific instances we've heard of. Could we have an update in how that investigation is going and an undertaking that there will be consequences to the findings of that investigation? And if it's been insufficient, that there should be an independent review. More generally, we need to look more in the round at whether the UK's actions help or hinder the aims of the NSAR's protests. Between 2015 and 2020, the UK licensed arms exports and riot control equipment to the tune of £43 million. So, at the very least, we should, pending a review of our actions and effect of the UK's foreign policy and trade policy within Nigeria, surely suspend arms exports to the country. Mr. Gray, the NSAR's regime, the NSAR's movement, could be a new Arab Spring for Nigeria. Given all the demographic, economic forces in play, all that enthusiasm is there. We must learn from history and not let the NSAR's movement down the way we did the Arab Spring. For that would be a tragedy, and that would bring culpability upon us even more than we have. It's not just enough to express solidarity while aiding and abetting and arming and funding the oppressors. And the UK has a case to answer here. We need to look back into the consequences of our action and make sure that we do all we can to ensure accountability on the ground. I do look forward to the Minister's comments this evening.
Stephen Doherty.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gray. It's a pleasure to serve as your chairmanship as always, and I wanted to thank the Right Honourable Member for Chipping Barnett for introducing the petition today, and to all the members who've taken part for incredibly powerful and passionate contributions on such a crucial issue. Also thank the comments from the Chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, but in particular my friend, the Chair of the Nigeria APPG, who has done so much work to speak out on these atrocities, not just when they happen, but long before that, in terms of the wider SARS movement and the brutality that they have been exposing. And we've heard incredibly powerful speeches today from the members from Lewisham East, West Ham, Coventry North West, Erith and Thamesmead, and indeed the SNP spokesperson. And I know there are other colleagues, as was pointed out, who would have been here, Mr. Gray, but have equally been speaking out very powerfully on these issues. And I too want to thank the over 200,000 individuals who have signed this petition and its creators. And that, of course, includes many significant signatures from the Nigerian diaspora here in the UK, but also all the others who share deep concerns about what is happening in Nigeria and when it comes to wider human rights abuses around this world. This is not a country, Mr. Gray, that will turn a blind eye when such atrocities are happening. And the scenes we have witnessed and the reports that have come out of Nigeria of the response by the police and the army against protesters involved in the NSARS movement have shocked us all. And of course, we've heard from many of the contributions today of the events of the 20th of October, when a group of NSARS protesters were fired upon, it appears, by members of the Nigerian army at the Lekki Tollgate Plaza, after the CCTV was taken off and after the lights were turned off. And of course, the tragic deaths and injuries that resulted as a result of that action. And I spoke, Mr. Gray, to those who had been around in the vicinity of these incidents, who have seen and witnessed firsthand the brutality meted out by SARS and by those attempting to defend them. And I can tell you they were shocking testimonies, Mr. Gray, and I know that many of us have witnessed the video footage and pictures of the events, absolutely horrific. Now, despite the Nigerian army having denied it for over a month, it has been finally forced to admit at the judicial panel inquiry the soldiers were deployed to the Tollgate protest with both blank and live ammunition. And as many honourable members have pointed out, the report from Amnesty International documented 82 cases of human rights violations between January 2017 and May 2020, including various methods of torture against detainees such as hanging, mock execution, beating, punching and kicking, burning with cigarettes, waterboarding, near asphyxiation with plastic bags, forcing victims into stressful bodily positions and sexual violence and rape. It is a shocking record of behaviour. And yet few of these cases have been investigated and hardly any officers have been brought to justice on credible accounts of torture and other ill treatment. The authorities have promised investigations, but they often have simply not occurred. And the federal government of Nigeria has repeatedly promised to reform SARS, but has failed to do so. And of course, the protests we've seen recently originate not only in that record of brutality, but in other documented incidents across the country in Delta State, in Oyo State, and in recent days I've received reports of extrajudicial killings by allegedly the Nigerian army in Oyigbo, Two Rivers. What assessment has the Minister made of those most recent reports? This is still carrying on after those shocking events that we have seen just a few weeks ago. Mr. Chair, the violent repression of protesters in Nigeria is unacceptable and has garnered, rightly, international condemnation. President-elect Biden has called on the Nigerian government to end the violent crackdown. The UN Secretary-General has said that Nigerians' right to protest peacefully needs to be guaranteed and that police brutality needs to stop. And we in the official opposition absolutely agree with those sentiments. The violent crackdown on these protests must end, and there must be accountability for those responsible for such brutality and loss of life. The Leader of the Opposition, my honourable friend, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, have made it clear that the UK must act as a force for good in the world, and we must act in line with our international partners and multinational organisations, whether that's the UN, AU, the UN Human Rights Council and others, to encourage and strongly advocate for the end of this violence in Nigeria, to end police brutality in Nigeria, and crucially to call for independent investigations into these violations by Nigerian policing, security and military forces. Obviously, it would always be better if we had confidence in the systems of investigation within a country, within Nigeria, but the ongoing failures and the ongoing record of the government in dealing with SARS, I think, underpins why so many do not have faith in that process, and that is why independent investigations will be so crucial. Now, this petition specifically refers to sanctions, and Mr Gray, we in the official opposition welcomed the Foreign Secretary's establishment of a Magnitsky-style sanctions regime, which we had been calling for since 2018, to allow for targeted sanctions based on attacks on human rights and to enable us to target the wider network of perpetrators, including all of those who facilitate, incite, promote or support such crimes. And that, of course, extends beyond state officials to non-state actors as well. And the Foreign Secretary told us at the time in the House that these would be used to target, and I quote, those with blood on their hands. Well, it's clear, Mr Gray, that individuals do have blood on their hands in relation to the activities of SARS and these atrocities over the last few months. And given the allegations against members of SARS and the growing evidence of the atrocities that were committed, we would urge the UK government to use its full investigative capacity, including drawing on the evidence provided by independent human rights organisations in Nigeria and elsewhere, to identify individuals responsible for these atrocities and, if appropriate, designate them for sanctions under our Magnitsky regime. We cannot stand by in the face of such willful perpetration of human rights violations and killings, not least given our close political, economic and security relationship with Nigeria. We cannot be a disinterested or unconnected party. I want to turn, Mr Gray, to the UK's own role in relation to SARS, and we've heard this from a number of members in the debate so far. Despite initially denying it, the Minister for Africa has admitted that through the Conflict Stabilisation and Security Fund in Nigeria, SARS members were trained as part of the Nigeria policing programme, and that the UK government has been involved in training of members of SARS, despite that happening during a time when there were ongoing public, well-known allegations of extrajudicial executions, extortion, torture and rape by this unit. And I'm sorry to say, Mr Gray, but this is, while shocking, it is unfortunately not an entirely unexpected revelation to me. And it's also not surprising, and I have the review of the programme here, Mr Gray, that this was a programme led by the Foreign Office rather than DFID. Of course, UK support for security and justice reform in countries around the world can have positive impacts. But what's absolutely clear to me is that in a growing number of cases, it is not clear what impact we are having, or whether in the worst cases we are actually supporting agencies who have a role in committing atrocities or human rights violations. This is just one example. Whether it's this example or the ongoing supplying of arms to the Saudi Arabian government for use in the Yemen crisis, or the training of the Special Investigations Unit in Bahrain, which has also been complicit in the torture of prisoners, and of course they use the death penalty. The government is having to repeatedly have to come and justify its involvement with organisations and institutions that appear to breach our very own standards, let alone international law and human rights. So can the Minister tell me whether she has considered suspending support and training for such programmes for Nigerian security, military and justice institutions until she is absolutely satisfied that they are not supporting individuals and organisations who have been implicated in these atrocities. And will the government commit to a review of the effectiveness of OSJA projects? I was extraordinary to reading the summary, Mr. Gray, to find that the programme was listed as scoring an A and an A in 2018-19, and that the risk was only medium. This does sound to me to be completely, out of kilter with the facts that we have heard today and that we've been hearing for many, many years. And of course, looking beyond Nigeria, given the deeply concerning news that we're hearing coming out from locations across Africa in recent weeks, what measures is the government taking to protect human rights across the continent and to tackle those responsible, whether those responsible for atrocities in Ethiopia or those who are involved in suppressing the democratic process in Tanzania and Uganda? We cannot have impunity for those taking out atrocities or war crimes, whatever their role or status, whether that's official, unofficial, official government sources, official military sources, or irregular forces who are acting on behalf of different groups, whether those are central governments, regional governments, rebel groups. It doesn't matter who they are. We cannot have impunity for those people who are carrying these out. And it appears to me a double irony, Mr. Gray, that we are seeing support for wrong programmes like this when the government, we hear, is proposing cutting the right programmes, proposing cutting the 0.7% target, proposing cutting support to development and peace programmes across the world. And I hope the Minister will be able to perhaps reassure us that that is not going to happen. But Mr. Gray, in conclusion, from the Black Lives Matter movement in the USA to the NSARS movement in Nigeria, it's clear that any democratic government must respond to the needs, first and foremost, of its citizens in providing policing and security that is accountable to the people that it serves, does not hold itself above the law, but defends the law and conducts itself in line with the principles and values that underpin it. We stand on the side of all of those in Nigeria who are calling for peace, for democracy and for the rule of law to be upheld. Killings must end, democracy and the rule of law must prevail, and the UK should be a partner to all Nigerians seeking peace, justice and development.
Wendy Morton.
Thank you, Mr. Gray, and it's a pleasure to take part in this debate this afternoon under your excellent guidance and chairmanship, so thank you. Let me start by saying that I'm very grateful to my honourable friend, the member for Chipping Barnet, for securing this debate, and actually to all the members who have contributed today. We've heard from the member for Tonbridge and Marling, from Edmonton, Lewisham East, West Ham and others, and for all the contributions that you have made. I will endeavour to answer as many of your questions as I possibly can. I can't say within the time allowed because we're doing quite well on the time at the moment, I think, Mr. Gray, but I know you will keep me in good order and not let me get carried away here. But this is an important debate, and the Minister for Africa has asked me to offer his apologies to those of you here in the House, and as he is away on ministerial business and he's therefore not able to attend. But I do know he has a very close interest in this topic, and I feel sure that he will be following this debate with great attention, as we would expect of the Minister for Africa. So I will therefore respond on behalf of the government in his place. We are grateful to the nearly 220,000 members of the public who signed the petition and enabled this debate to take place. There is, quite rightly, significant public concern about the recent protests in Nigeria, especially the issue of police brutality. I also acknowledge the strong feeling about this issue in this place, and I'm thankful for the contributions from all colleagues today. And as I said, I will try to respond to all of the points raised. But first, let me set out the government's position on the protests and on police reform, and then I will address the topic of sanctions. I would like to assure the House that the government is following developments in Nigeria since the protests very closely. We are deeply concerned by violence during the protests, which tragically claimed lives. And I'm sure honourable members here today will join me in passing on our condolences to the families of those affected. The UK supports the right to peaceful protest. We condemn violence by any party, and in doing so,
make an important distinction between the rioting and looting that took place and the original peaceful protest movement. We have raised the protests and the response to them at the highest levels within the Nigerian government. The Foreign Secretary issued a statement on the 21st of October calling for an end to the violence. He called for the Nigerian government to urgently investigate reports of brutality by its security forces and to hold those responsible to account. The Minister for Africa spoke to Foreign Minister Onyema on the 23rd of October to reiterate his tweets that recognised the Nigerian people's democratic and peaceful calls for reform and encouraged the Nigerian authorities to restore peace and to address concerns over brutality towards civilians. The British High Commissioner in Abuja continues to raise the protests with senior representatives of the Nigerian government, including our concerns about intimidation of civil society groups and peaceful activists. We welcome President Buhari's decision to disband the Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squad, the police unit at the centre of recent protests. And it's important that historic reports of police brutality and violence during recent protests are investigated fully. We also welcome the emerging dialogue between state governors and young people. In a country where more than 50% of the population is under 25, this conversation is so important in understanding the concerns of the next generation. And we also welcome the President's request for his Cabinet Ministers to do the same in their home areas. And lastly, we welcome the establishment of judicial panels of inquiry to investigate all the alleged incidents. I can also update members that the Minister for Africa spoke to the Governor of Lagos on the 11th of November. And he also spoke to the President's Chief of Staff, Ibrahim Gambari, on the 21st of November. He stressed the importance of police and military cooperation with the panels. He also expressed the urgent need for panels to progress investigations, including into the incident at Lekki. As you see from the government's written response to this petition, we continue to monitor these investigations and their outcomes very closely. We also continue to monitor progress on police reform and to support Nigerian-led reform. Earlier this year, for example, we supported civil society efforts to secure the successful passage of the new Police Act. Implemented effectively, this Act will be an important step towards a more transparent and accountable police force. Turning now to sanctions, Mr Gray, I would like to set out the government's position on sanctions. On the 6th of July, the government established the global human rights sanctions regime. And in a statement to Parliament, my right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, set out its full scope. It gives the UK a powerful new tool to hold to account the perpetrators of serious human rights violations or abuses. It's a long-standing practice not to speculate on future sanctions designations, as to do so could reduce the impact of the designations. The sanctions regime complements our ongoing human rights activities around the world and demonstrates that this country's commitment to be a force for good. And we will continue to keep all evidence and potential listings under very close review. Before I come to my rounding off my conclusions, Mr Gray, though, I want to try and touch on a few more of the points that have been raised by honourable members today. Yes, of course.
Can I say I'm very grateful to the Honourable Lady for being here this afternoon, and given that the Minister wasn't able, because of foreign travel, to be with us today. All of us have asked for sanctions. I think it would be courteous to the committee if the Minister for Africa wrote to us, outlining the government's position on this and why we are not being assured this afternoon that sanctions will be happening.
No doubt the Minister will have read Hansard. It's not actually in order for this group, this debate, to call for that letter. So it's perfect sensible thing to ask for, and no doubt it may well occur, but the Minister's not required to answer the particular point.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for her friend, and as I said, I'm sure the Minister for Africa will be following this debate. I have a few more comments that I will make on sanctions, but I would like to just try and answer a few more of the other questions and say a little bit more on sanctions, if you will just bear with me. So, I wanted to have civil society groups and peaceful protesters with the Nigerian government. This does not build an environment for groups and protesters to come forward and really help build genuine accountability. But I can assure members that we are aware of that some protesters are facing intimidation. Members also raised the matter of UK aid. I think that was my honourable friend, the member for Chipping Barnet. And I would like to say that and reassure her that no UK taxpayers' money goes directly to the Nigerian government. The UK provides assistance to Nigeria to meet immediate humanitarian needs and to address long-term structural issues. While I'm on the topic of aid, I know the honourable gentleman opposite does try to tempt me regarding the 0.7% commitment, but as I'm sure he would anticipate, I'm not going to speculate ahead of any spending review.
Which I just wanted to ask her if she could elaborate. I mean, I appreciate that she's not the Minister for Africa. She'll be less familiar with these specific programmes. But I mean, it was very clear in the Minister's letter to us that the UK government was funding training programmes that directly involved SARS, despite the allegations. Does she not believe there's a problem here with our wider security and justice assistance programmes, including across the world, because we keep getting example after example after example where they're either being questioned about their impact or, worse still, that we're being implicated in some way in organisations that are not upholding our standards?
Thank you. The honourable gentleman must have sort of preempted some more of my notes, because I'm going to touch a little bit more on the SARS programme, and hopefully I can give him a bit more detail and as to the work that we're doing and what we are supporting. Before I come to that, just a quick note, because the Honourable Lady for Chipping Barnet also raised the point of the persecution of Christians, which again I know was another important topic. And just to reassure her that we made clear to the Nigerian authorities at the highest levels the importance of protecting civilians, including Christians, and human rights for all Nigerians. But I now come on to SARS and the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Mr Gray, the UK supports police and justice reform in Nigeria. All assistance is compliant with our human rights obligations and our values. And through our CSSF-funded Nigeria policing programme, which ended in March 2020, Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squads, or FSARS, officers participated in training on amended Nigerian police guidance designed to improve human rights, training on public finance, and community policing workshops. The Nigeria Policing Programme was part of our Security and Justice Reform Programme, which is working to help deliver a criminal justice system that better protects the human rights of all Nigerians. As a result of the programme, Mr Gray, relationships between communities and the police improved in 4 states. Trust was built, with communities and the police working together to resolve safety and security issues. The Nigerian Police Force's recent adoption of the Community Policing Framework, developed by the Nigeria Policing Programme, is a positive outcome. Our support to civil society was instrumental in the recent passing of the Police Act by the President, and this new Act provides for greater citizen protections and improved police training, which we believe will benefit Nigerians. Through the CSSF-funded North East Public Safety and Security Programme, part of which is delivered jointly with USAID, radio equipment was issued to Borno Police Command. This was for police units working to improve local security and to counter violent extremist organisations, including Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa. Borno Police Command distributed 3 radios to the local FSARS unit, which were returned after FSARS was disbanded. The North East Public Safety and Security Programme is part of our North East Africa Security, Conflict and Stabilisation Programme, working to help stabilise one of Nigeria's poorest and most fragile regions affected by Boko Haram and Islamic State, West Africa. But to conclude, I understand and I acknowledge and understand the strength of feeling in the House and among the public. The UK and Nigeria have a long and close relationship that extends beyond our governments to our people, especially through the British Nigerian diaspora community, which contributes so much to this country. And the diaspora was also raised by my right honourable friend who led this debate, the Honourable Lady for Chipping Barnett. The UK is home to over 200,000 members of the Nigerian diaspora who contribute so much to this country. And as I'm sure, Mr Gray, you will be aware, my honourable friend, the member for Saffron Walden, was the first minister for Nigeria. In terms of communications and engagement with the diaspora, on the 18th of November, the Minister for Africa led a virtual business roundtable with members of the Nigerian diaspora business community to better understand challenges to increasing trade and investment between the UK and Nigeria. And the roundtable was also joined by my honourable friend, the UK Trade Envoy to Nigeria, and the British Deputy High Commissioner in Lagos. And I know that the Honourable Lady raises, asks whether she could request a meeting with the Minister for Africa. It would be wrong of me perhaps to commit him to that, but I can certainly pass on her request, Mr Gray. But this government will continue to press the Nigerian government and its security services to uphold human rights and the rule of law, to investigate all incidents of brutality, illegal detentions and the use of excessive force, and to hold those responsible to account. We will closely monitor the judicial panel of inquiries and continue to advocate for investigations into police brutality. The government will consider its options as the panel's work progresses. The government would also continue to work with the Nigerian government and international and civil society partners to improve the accountability and transparency of the Nigerian police for the benefit of all Nigerians.
Theresa Villiers.
Thank you, Mr Gray. Well, like others, I believe this has been an excellent debate with well-informed contributions, with real insight, both from backbench and front bench. And I would take this last minute or two just to really urge the Minister and the rest of the team at the Foreign Office to use all diplomatic means they have available to get the message to the authorities in Nigeria that they need to listen to what the protests are asking for, and that I do hope that whilst the Minister, for all sorts of reasons, has felt unable to make commitments on targeted sanctions today, I think there is a really strong case for doing this, and I hope that behind the scenes the Foreign Office will continue to pursue this, so that in the not too distant future we will see an announcement on that. We've heard obviously in this debate some really disturbing accounts of what happened at Lekki, but also of a long history of brutality and extrajudicial killings, and particularly grim accounts were recounted by the Shadow Minister. But I very much hope that we also take away from this debate the optimism that I think everyone showed about the future for Nigeria. It has so much potential. As the Honourable Member for Edmonton says, you know, there's real potential for a new Nigeria, a better future. And I hope that these protests do signal a real change towards addressing those concerns around corruption, around brutality, around poor governance. Because if those issues are resolved, if we see real progress on that, we can see huge success and flourishing in Nigeria, not least in economic terms. So it's been my privilege to lead this debate. I thank all the people who signed the E-petition. I think this is a great example of the E-petition process working really effectively, because nearly 250,000 people sign that petition, we here in the Mother of Parliaments get the opportunity to urge and advocate for change and reform in Nigeria, and it's been my privilege to take part in that process.
The question is, this House E-petition 554150 related to Nigeria and the sanction regime. Those can say aye. Contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.
And let's come to these late...
The proceeding has ended.
Well, thank you very much. We've just heard about that the proceeding have just ended. Once again, a very good evening and welcome. Let's put that one back and let us remove that one. Yep. Well, a very good evening and welcome to the conversation with myself. I'm sure a lot of you have had the opportunity to listen carefully to that just finished, concluded debate at the House of Commons this evening. That debate took place right inside the Westminster Hall. The debate on the E-petition 554150 relating to Nigeria and the sanctions regime that was scheduled, for today, the 23rd of November, 2020. And as you can see, they were not even up to 19:30. The debate was meant to go up to 7:30. And if you check your time, it's exactly 7:20. Does Nigeria matter to them? Your guess is as good as mine. I would allow you, my viewers, to call in while we can get your view of what you've listened to and the way forward. So much I've been able to jot down a few things myself. But one thing I picked up from that conversation that just concluded was one of the members of Parliament, the MP, spoke about the Arab Spring. Those answers and other things happening in Nigeria might end up become, the Nigeria Spring, or is it just the answers that might end up becoming, the Nigeria Spring? Also, over 220,000 people signed for that petition, which was the reason why the debate took place today. Also, role in committing injustice. We've seen a lot of injustice taking place in Nigeria. Supply of arms to Saudi Arabia. So when we sit down here, people that are in Nigeria do not even understand some of these things. Maybe we hope that they can now start getting the message. Look, the UK government supply arms to the same, Saudi Arabia that Nigeria will continue to visit, for the pilgrimage. Even though it's wrong, we've seen so many atrocities committed by Saudi Arabia. The latest one, or the recent one, was the killing of one of the journalists right inside the embassy in Turkey. So also, they've been giving training, to the police and the Nigerian security. What measure is the government taking? What did you get from that debate? I'm not sure. Maybe when we open the phone line, I will get what you think about. They talk about impunity. Buhari was here. He died. A lot of you might say he's still alive. The one day is an imposter. But he was allowed to come here and take medical treatment. Even though the government could have stopped it, but they allowed him to come here. So what come, all the money that was used, to take care of the Asura clinic. So much impunity is taking place. Majority of the politicians, they own buildings here. They have, properties here. They have money stashed all over the banks across the country. But yet, is impunity. I'm sure your guess is as good as mine. They were expecting the government, the Nigerian government, to provide security to its citizens. Really? Nigerian government providing security for you? How many of you can guarantee that the Nigerian government is providing you security? How many of you watching can guarantee that Nigerian government is providing you with security? A crazy country that needs to break up as quickly as possible. But you think it's going to happen? Okay. Once again, a very good evening and welcome, to the broadcast. Let's take some more from what some of the point I noted down. Rule of law must prevail. I laugh. When people sit there and expect the same rule of law that takes place in UK, in America, in Canada, in France, in Germany, and you think it's going to happen in Nigeria. Boko Haram is moving all over the place. But yet, a lot of you would think that there's going to be a rule of law. You can now see the reason why we tell you, go and sign the petition. You refuse to sign the petition. At least they will have a debate on it, even if they don't give us everything that we want from it. We've asked you, sign the petition, but some of you will never understand the reason why we asked you to go and sign the petition. At least you saw that, they were able to sit, for about an hour, 20 minutes, even though they were meant to sit for, that is the petition. I mean, the petition that we have been asking you to sign is not even up to, the number that we need for them to debate it. I mean, what we have there is just about 18,000. Let's hope maybe within the next couple of hours, that will become 100,000. Or maybe some of you are probably not interested in signing the petition. Before we take calls, let me quickly go through more notes that I've got here. The Minister for Africa is somewhere in Africa where we are debating, a biggest economy according to them. The Minister for Africa, he was aware that today there will be a debate. Does he care? No, they're not interested in that. Are they interested? No, they are not. The Minister for Africa, the one that should be on the seat to talk and take questions, he just sent a representative. The Minister for Africa was not even on the seat. I saw, I picked up also concerns and intimidation. The government have become tyrant, intimidating almost everybody. Even if we are part of, those that they can intimidate us because, why would they want to? But they've been intimidating those of you that believe in one shithole called Nigeria, a country that you are still talking one Nigeria. They will continue to intimidate you and you will be killed. You think the UK government will help you? Oh, no, forget about that. The least that they can do is what they've done at the moment. They talk about it and then so what? You will become more, they will intimidate you. And if you have your way, you probably run away. The minister spoke to your governor in Lagos State on the 11th of November, and he spoke to Gambari, that one in Aso Rock, on the 21st of November. What is the outcome? Police reform. The UK government is asking Nigeria to do police reform. So they just woke up and realized that the amalgamation that they gave us is part of the reason why Nigeria is in a shithole. The amalgamation that joined us together with the Fulani is the reason why the Fulani that they gave the power. Now they're talking about police reform. UK government is talking about police reform, but they forgot to tell us that when they implemented, these power to the north, they will use that to suppress people from the south and the southwest and the southeast. They forgot about that. So when they were merging us with this nasty contraction called Nigeria, they didn't remember that one day on the 20th of October 2020, they were going to kill more people. Go and sign the petition. The petition is open to everybody. And the link, we've already been posting it there. And I'm sure those of you on the timeline will have been able to see it. So they are now telling the Nigerian government, go and do police reform, oh, your people are complaining, oh, stop intimidating your people are complaining, oh. They never saw what was going on in Oyigbo when killing was taking place. Do you think it was only Lekki? They have been killing Nigerians is not today. Do you know how many people was killed when Buhari came in 83? Do you know how many people were killed so many times before even the Lekki Tollgate? Do you know how many people are being killed? As at Saturday, one of the NSAS protesters was killed in Ekiti. And you say you have a governor. And then that governor will probably have a property here or have an account here that has that money here, but the UK government will probably not look at that. Impunity. Who is deceiving who? Who is deceiving who? Who is deceiving who? I'm asking us. So, you've heard about it, you've watched it, we have both watched it. And I'm sure you're probably now asking yourself, is that all? No sanction, no sanction for the government. I'm sure Lai Mohammed is so happy. He's a very happy man, that old man. He's probably happy now. And the short man devil in Aso Rock, I'm talking about your vice president, short man devil, killed innocent lives. All they can do is, just pretend like nothing has happened. In this country, the prime minister will have resigned. If policemen or the military have killed innocent British, the prime minister will have resigned long time ago. Tender his resignation. But you can see, the vice president there still pretending like, he loves Nigeria so much. Pastor Ruga, shit old country. And then some of you now are so excited. We tell you, NSAS is not the problem in Nigeria. Nigeria is the word that we need to be talking about. Your constitution will give the military and the people power to make sure that you will never, even those of you that are calling yourself, let us create a political party with these animals that are ready to kill you, and you think the British government will do anything? No. Don't know anything. We are telling you, let us end this shit up country called Nigeria. We end it and everybody have a peaceful life. But no, some of you are saying, it's about NSAS. It's not about NSAS. You will continue to be intimidated by your politician, and they will continue to come to London as a safe haven. And the least or the worst you can hear is the British government say, well, we are still doing something. You have them there. That the British High Commission in Nigeria is still working with the nonsense. Nonsense. All right, let's take some calls and then I'll come back to some of my notes there. Please, when you call, let us make it as quick as possible. The number to call is going to pop up on the screen in just about a few minutes. But +4475 94050 Let us get your view. Is that all? No sanction, nothing. Or they are still waiting for the panel that has been deceiving us. Shit old country. It is not, look, it doesn't matter whether you protest NSAS again and again and again. Well, it will create a momentum, but it's not going to solve the problem. The problem is, let us finish Nigeria. Let us end it once and for all, so that people's life can become more meaningful. This Janjaweed, Kofulani, they're not going to listen to the British government because they know and they understand the game better than the British government now. Let's go straight to my first caller. And please mute your background device if you call. If not, we'll have to take it off. Hello, good evening, caller.
Hello, good evening. My name is Solomon. Yes, I watched the debates as well, and I dropped a comment that I was highly disappointed that the Minister for Africa was.
The Minister for Africa is somewhere in Africa as well. He's not interested in the debate. Go ahead. Sorry, I was connecting the speaker. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, it was highly disappointing as you could see that they were discussing that putting the whole Magnitsky sanctions targeting individuals. Everybody agreed to it, but you need the minister there to confirm that this will be the next step we're taking. And the person that was representing it there didn't want to confirm nor deny. And you know what that means if you're familiar to the people here. You know, they just want to see how we are going to react to what we've seen today, and if the pressure dies down, the story dies down, so I will never hear again of this so-called sanction or doing anything towards something that's actually tangible, you know, that would actually end this impunity, killings, and everything happening in Nigeria. I've been hearing what you've been saying about with regard to separation and having a Yoruba land, you know, Oduduwa. I assume you're from Yoruba. Yes, I'm a Yoruba as well, but I'm someone that I connect with Nigerians from all over. I still believe that the country can work as one. But what we really need is a new constitution. We need to rewrite that constitution.
Let me ask you there. Do you think that you can I mean let's put it as we, because you agree with Nigeria, and that's that's opinion, that's a very good. I mean, we are not a tyrant broadcaster that will cut you straight away. What I want to ask you is, do you believe or think that you can ever get a new constitution with the way the Fulani, because I believe the Fulani are in control. Whether you agree with that is a different thing. But let's put as let's generalize as Nigeria. Do you think you can get a new constitution?
I want to believe that we had the chance to do that when Obasanjo was there. Obviously, Obasanjo was one that instilled the current constitution we have. Then Goodluck was there as well. He was the president. He was the commander-in-chief. He had the power. I think there was a call for national consensus during the time they were discussing it. But the problem we have is implementation in Nigeria. They do all these meetings, they talk about all these useful things, but they don't implement nothing. I don't think they understand the word, what it means to have meetings, plan something, and implement. Implementation. There was a national consensus during Jonathan Goodluck's time. From all over the country, people spoke about rewriting the constitution, but nothing happened after.
So the question again is: do you think that we will get a new constitution?
I think the constitution is past its due date. So whether that's why it's expired. So everybody knows that. Even the people understanding. So they know that the constitution we have right now it's not working.
So you have not really answered the question. Are we ever going to get a new constitution?
Yes.
You think so? Okay.
In my lifetime, definitely. Okay. My generation will not let this continue.
All right. Then. Okay.
Is that a new constitution or a kind of will you just separate, everybody goes their way? And the end is coming very close.
Before you go, let me take this from you. One of the speaker there talked about the Arab Spring. That is very powerful. Are we going to see Nigeria Spring? And you know what that means. It will break everything up, and you will not get this one new Nigeria that you are talking about.
Yeah, the difference between we Africans and the Arabs is we're not, and the Arabs are used to this.
We are more exposed. We are more exposed. Is that what you're looking for?
We're more exposed, but they would sacrifice hundreds of their lives for a cause.
But we don't want to do that.
Nigerians can do that.
We love too much party. That's why we're not going to do that. So that means that constitution will take longer as well. That means Nigeria is going to take longer, maybe another 200 years before it finally works. And that means you will not be alive. My generation will probably then be crying that Fulani took over because you and myself refused to agree on one table. Thank you very much, caller, and I'm sure we will definitely speak to you soon again. Well, that is the beauty of this is not a tyrant broadcast. We are allowed. Look, I have said it so many times. Not everybody is going to agree with the Yoruba nation or Biafra nation. But one thing we can talk about is let's have this conversation. You have listened to this interview or these debates rather that took place just about almost. I mean, they were meant to have finished just 8 minutes ago. But I looked at the timing. They were meant to be there till 7:30. But it's Nigeria. Why do they have to discuss too much? If even the minister himself was not on the seat. The minister was not on the seat. The last caller believed that we can have a new constitution and that will save the problem. My number is the one scrolling on the top and right at the bottom as well. We have another caller. Let's go straight to the caller. Hello, good evening, caller.
Hello, Yomi. Good evening.
Okay, good evening, my auntie, and welcome onto the program. You've listened to it, and I'll let you do your contribution. If there's a bit of delay, it's because I'm connecting you to the speaker, and there might be a kind of delay, but I can hear you. But go ahead now.
Okay, we've all listened to it, and what I can observe in the broadcast, the British government is because of it's not the British people that are being killed.
Okay.
So we're not going to be doing anything.
So if I can get you what you're saying is
Nigerians
okay
to start taking the justice into their hands, because if we think the British government are going to be doing anything, you know how much Nigeria is contributing into British economy.
Yeah, but
and you want them to do something.
But
you know how much that the Fulanis are allowing them to take from Nigeria, and you want them. It's like when you are breastfeeding a child, and then you want that child, you want to remove the breast from that child. Do you think the British government, they can talk about it, but they're not going to do anything? But we are guaranteeing them that the next protest in Nigeria is not starting, Yomi, until we know the addresses of all the governors, their properties, the properties they have in Nigeria, the properties they have in abroad, then the senators, their addresses, where they live, where the properties they have got, the House of Parliament or whatever they call themselves in Nigeria. The next protest is not going to happen until all those people, even the Obas, the Ezes, we need to know, because we're starting another protest in Nigeria without knowing the addresses of these people that are helping the government to Nigerian government intimidate us. I'm telling you, the same thing will happen. But the moment they touch one Nigeria, their houses are coming down, their properties are coming down, their children also is being killed. I'm telling you, that's when the British government is going to get up and say, hold on here, Nigeria needs to break up, because this can't continue.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go straight to my next caller from Ireland, I guess. A very good evening and welcome onto the show.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
What I'm thinking about is, even from the whole conversation of the discussion, what I'm saying is that they are not really talking about what is on the ground, the truth. And if they think that maybe they can do anything, maybe to stop Nigerian stopping brutalizing the citizens, I don't think they will succeed in doing that, because for many decades they have been doing it to us. They have been killing our children. They have been keeping us hungry. A lot of us are running to Europe everywhere, and some of the time the kind of embarrassing questions they ask us, and as if they don't know what is the root of the cause of all this.
So let me ask you some question there. So what is the root cause of the problem itself? What is the root cause of the problem?
The root cause of the problem is for the British to merge us together, to amalgamate the country. The other people, because we come from different kingdoms, according to our history. And even when you look at the way the nation is, we don't have the same culture. And there's no understanding. It's just a kind of wickedness, I can call it. Because that wickedness has to be dismantled. The message has to be sent straight to the north. Other people want to be separate from them. We want to be a separate nation. We were never one before.
One of the
So we
message.
don't want to be part of Nigeria.
Sorry to interfere. One of the message of the minister, even though he was not on his seat, was that the UK and Nigeria have a very close relationship. But you are talking about the amalgamation, but they still have a good relationship.
They have a good relationship with Nigeria. But then, if that is the case, they can maintain their relationship with Nigeria in Arewa, but not with Nigeria in the southern part of the country. Okay. The Yorubas, the Igbo, the Middle Belt, they are fed up of Nigeria. We have had enough. For many years, our brothers and sisters, our forefathers, they have been killed in the name of Nigeria. We are tired of this. We don't want this repercussion to keep coming back
the sake of humanity.
Because
Well,
they are very high. They are watching all this is happening. Some of them, they live in Nigeria. They know what is happening.
let me say this.
Constitution, everything is broken down.
Let me ask seems to be doing. Nothing seems to be done.
And that is what I'm saying, because it's like they are taking it lightly with the Nigerian government, and they say they have a good bilateral. They have a good bilateral, fine. But we are not having a good bilateral with Nigeria. We would say that we have a good, in fact, we have seen evil. Nigeria is evil and demonic. Demonic country.
Nigeria
people that
is.
feed in the flesh of other people, sucking people's blood. That flag, we don't want to see it anymore.
Nigeria is
That
evil.
flag, enough is enough.
Hmm.
And all the mineral resources that they are taking from our land, that's the northerners, they should all vacate our land. Really, we don't really need them. If we have nothing, but we have freedom and we have peace, I can love it and prefer it more than to be under somebody as a slave. The British have to make the northerners to understand. Other tribes are just a slave to them. And whether they make it known to them or not, they need to vacate from our territory. They invited the Fulani to come to Yoruba land and other places, all around, all over. They are taking up our land and they are killing us. Which country will take it? I believe the United Kingdom will never let it, and that is even why they shoot it today. That is one of the reasons they don't want to separate from EU, just because there are certain things they don't want, or there's the way they want to live in their country.
Okay, thank you very much.
Some of us, there's the way we want to live our life.
All right,
our life is not compatible with these people. We don't want to live with them anymore.
Okay.
We are not strong, but we are mighty in the spirit than them.
All right, thank you.
Because God is with us.
Okay.
And we are sure that the wrath of God will visit them in due course.
Okay.
For them and their allies. If they do not give judgment right now, God will still give judgment in His own time. But we want them to solve this thing and let them know we don't want to be part of that nation anymore.
Thank you very much.
Anybody can have a good relationship with them. Even we ourselves, if we want to have some kind of a relationship with the Lord, we can if we. But it doesn't have to be the same. One is the first.
Okay. All right.
Other people can as well live on their own. They should have something that comes from their own mind. That's determination. But not maybe another country from anywhere all around the world. They come and they tell you have to be together.
All right. Let's give somebody else another call, another opportunity to hear their view. Thank you very much from that caller. Hello, good evening, caller. Hello, good evening. Your contribution this evening.
Hello?
Let's hear your contribution. Go ahead.
Yeah, I called to ask a question. I want to ask you a question especially.
You want to ask me?
Okay. What were you expecting from the British Parliament?
I was expecting them to give us a Yoruba and Biafra and then break everything, but I didn't hear that from the conversation.
Okay, that was what you were expecting, right?
Yeah.
Me, I was not expecting anything from them.
Okay.
Because all the stealing that is going on in our country, do you know how much the Western world is benefiting?
Okay.
If they give you the Biafra or give you the Duduwa, how can they benefit those things? Do you know how much is coming from Nigeria to the British government every year? My brother, we should think well. We should think and plan on how to solve our problem. The Western world, they cannot solve our problem because they are benefiting from us. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Let's come back to London. I can see you, Chris, all the way in Nigeria. Give me a minute. Good evening, Mr. Ade from London. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good evening, sir. I really appreciate your program and your effort.
Thank you very much.
Actually, what we are expecting from Parliament today is what we saw, and we cannot expect expecting something more than that. They are talking in their own terms. They are not talking or debating in our own terms.
Okay.
You know. And
so what is our own terms? So what is our own terms?
The Prime Minister will not do anything. If you remember in the Civil War, even the Prime Minister then, Alan Winston, refused to even do anything until the Parliament assured him that he's going to lose the next election. That is when he agreed with Awolowo that the currency should be changed. You know, that is how they were able to defeat the Biafra troops there. So, some today until the Parliament assures that if this war continues more than 1970, we are going to lose the next election. And that is the when.
Oh, it looks like it's probably gone the London Underground. We lost him there.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah, we can hear you.
So that has been their pattern. They will always talk in their own terms, not in our own terms. Until we started our own struggle. Look at what is going on in Ethiopia today. What we Yoruba want is what we want, not what the British want for us.
Okay.
And what we want as a Yoruba is we want to have our own nation. And it's as simple as ABC. If you look at what Baba said in the interview you played this morning or this afternoon in BP Suez, that the interview was granted in Suez in Ibadan, it is very clear. We want our own nation. And I don't think we are asking for what is out of hand. It is what is in the realm of our own right to ask for. It is, and you can see the journalist keep asking him it's not in the constitution. Even if it is in the constitution, the government will not tell us to go and set up the committee for us to leave the country.
Definitely.
It's not going to say that.
They can't do that.
Even the British will not even support us until we begin the fight.
Okay, until we begin the fight.
Okay. They're going to tell us to fight for our freedom. We are going to fight for it. And whether they like it or not, Fulani have said they're not going to do any restructuring. They have made it clear. It is not left for we Yorubas to tell ourselves where we are going and how we are going to go about it. It's as simple as that.
Okay, all right.
This is the debate of today in the Parliament is solely for NSAS. It is not even for the Nigerian problem.
Oh yeah, it was for the NSAS. You're right. Yeah.
Yes, it's for NSAS. Thank you so much, my dear brother.
All right, let's go straight to Lagos. Hello, caller. Hello. All right, let's come back here. The debate, as my last caller said, was for the NSAS. I guess we have another caller, and let's go straight to him. Hello, good evening, caller. Okay, when it comes to Nigeria, I'm sure you know that the network. Thank you. Thank you.
And secondly, I would like to ask, is it the first time the killing start on October 1st? The killing has been long. It's been long, but what did the British do was about this? What did they have been doing about it? Nothing.
Okay.
So we unravel the scroll. So we unravel it. We know what they are benefiting from Nigeria. We know, we all know. We are not asking of too much. We are not asking of too much because is it all the citizens now and now everything turned upside down? Is that when they will now like want to amalgamate us? It's not working. They can say it's not working. They started it. They should end it. Because to me, all what they said, there was no sense in it.
Well, let us remember the conversation on the debate today was more of the NSAS. So it was not even anything to do with Nigeria. So it was more of the NSAS.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. There is no need. There is no need because at the end of the day, they didn't say anything meaningful.
Okay.
So what is it?
But they did say they're telling the Nigerian government to do police. They said that they were telling the Nigerian government to do police reform.
We are not asking too much.
Okay.
We are not asking too much. We are asking them to de-amalgamate us. Okay. It's not a must for us to stay together. It is not working.
So the question I want to ask you, so do you think that it's the British that needs to de-amalgamate Nigeria?
I'm telling you, I do tell some Nigeria. I said the British, the white, they have nothing to do with us. They are not our messiah. We have to free ourselves.
We have to free ourselves.
We have to free ourselves. Yes, the better you know it, dream. It's the truth. You are just dreaming. So you take it with your own head. If you want your future to be bright and you want your unborn generation, you fight for your freedom.
You fight
for their freedom.
You fight for your freedom.
Any fucking right.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's read some of the comments. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mike on YouTube. The British interest in Nigeria is in the Hausa and the Fulani continue ruling and looting to support the British economy. Abe Lincoln, it is only cocoa we have in Yoruba land. Let's find a way to design a method of mass production. Our Yoruba petition, we go the way this one went. So now that we've seen one side of this petition from the NSAS, we shouldn't give up about our own petition that we've asked you all to continue to go and sign. And that petition is the one that I've been showing you. We've been posting it since morning, and we have posted it as well. Let's go straight to the new caller. A very good evening, caller, and welcome to the show. Okay, bit of network there, I guess. We'll give him a bit of more time. Hello, caller. Hello, good evening, caller. All right, I'm going to let that go. Well, we're not going to be here for all day. We're only here for another few more minutes, and then we will say a very good evening to you all. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening. Yes.
Let me just, first of all, thank you. So thank you to everyone that signed the sanction
Oh, yes.
for the NSAS.
The NSAS petition, yeah. Okay.
The saying goes that thousands of steps start with the same one.
Definitely.
I don't know which should I way to put it.
Yeah.
So I thought we're heading somewhere.
Okay.
Until I realized that the Secretary, is it for Africa, wasn't there.
The Minister for Africa.
Yeah,
the Minister for Africa was not on the seat.
The Minister,
yeah,
okay, wasn't on seat. So what I would say is I do appreciate all the MPs. And I don't think we should rush. I'm looking at a 50-50 result on this.
Okay.
I know that, remember that UK is going out of EU. And they're going all about to sign trade deals. And Nigeria is not exempted. So obviously, that interest will be protected. I agree. We shouldn't lose hope yet on sanctions. It's going to happen, but it might be a 50-50 result.
Okay.
But we should keep the pressure going.
Okay.
We shouldn't relent. We should not relent. We shouldn't stop.
Okay.
Even if the outcome, isn't what we're expecting, we should continue our protest and the rest until we get the result that's more favorable. We can't keep quiet. You know how this country works. We all live here.
Yeah.
It's all about process and, what's in there for me first.
Okay.
Before they look into other things. That's how it works.
Okay. All right.
So we shouldn't lose hope at all.
We shouldn't lose hope. All right.
We should be positive about that one.
We should remain positive.
And the subsequent one about the Yoruba agitation, Yoruba thing.
Yeah.
That should be, I don't know how long it's going to take. We might be thinking it will take 5, 6, 7 years. Yes, we shouldn't just relent. That's all I can say. We shouldn't relent.
So everything is, we must not give up and we must not relent. Just before you go, let me ask you this.
No surrender.
No retreat, no surrender. The government, part of what was discussed there, serious human rights abuse in Nigeria. The UK government is aware and they know that there is a serious human rights abuse. What do you say to that?
Well, you see, the thing is, I would say they've been quiet for a long time. They know what is going on. They know everything. But like I said, UK, at this moment, we have to just give them that, I'll look after myself first kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
That's what I say.
Okay.
They're coming out of EU soon.
Oh yeah, about 39 days before we finally
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I'll look after myself first. So they look at, okay, this one is coming, you know, in about 40, 39 days.
And then,
so should I just go ahead now and just land sanction on these people?
And they need all the trade deals they can get from any country
You know
around
what
the
I
world.
mean? Whatever they can get.
Well, I mean, it was mentioned there that they had a business meeting on the 18th of November with some, the minister had a roundtable discussion with some of the Nigerian business holders, and I'm sure they want to sign some more deals. All right. Okay, let's take more calls. Thank you very much for your contribution, and I say good evening to you there. Let's go straight again back to Lagos, and I hope this time around the network will be good. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Hello.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Hello.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Gbogbo àwọn kọ́mẹ̀ntì tí a kàn ń wò yìí, ọ̀dà Ọláyọmí ẹ wò ó, kò sí ọ̀rọ̀ èmi ò tiẹ̀ fẹ́ máa sọ èdè òyìnbó mọ́ lórí ètò yìí. Ṣé rí àwọn colonial power tó wá sí Áfíríkà, àwọn náà ṣì wà láfíríkà dìsìn. Gbogbo Africa country tí human rights tẹ́ bá Congo Republic lẹ́nìí, Uganda, Zimbabwe, gbogbo Africa country tí àwọn colonial power sí touch tó ń láwọn fún ní independent, kò sí kankan nínú wọn tó gbórí náà. Àwọn politicians wọn, they are like caretakers. Caretaker ni wọ́n ṣiṣẹ́ fún colonial. Àwọn Africa ò gbé British àwọn náà ṣe ṣèjọba Nàìjíríà náà. Ẹjọ́ àti jẹ́ ká máa sọ òótọ́ straight gbogbo ẹ̀yin náà mọ̀. Tí èèyàn bá parí yunifásitì ní Nàìjíríà nísìn, ṣé ó lè fi certificate rẹ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ ní UK ni? Ṣé ó lè lọ fi ṣiṣẹ́ ní UK? Ó lè fi ṣiṣẹ́ ní UK náà. Ṣé Nigerian citizen bó ṣe wà yẹn, ṣé kò lè gba visa UK kó lò lọ UK? Kò lè lọ UK.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let him go. Thank you very much. Let's come back to the next caller. Hello, good evening, caller. All right. Can you mute the... Okay, there's a lot of noise coming from your background. I know there's noise here, but I don't want to hear noise from your side as well. I can hear so much noise from the background. Yeah, we can hear you. Let's put it on speaker. I'm struggling to hear you, and if I'm struggling to hear you, the rest of the followers cannot hear you at all. Yeah, it's much a bit better now. All right, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise at your background. I'm going to let you go. Sorry about that. It seems, maybe Madame is also on the phone somewhere behind you. Let's say good evening to you all. It's not going to be a long show. The most important thing is we just wanted to let you all get the view that, they've debated the answers. My caller before the last one says we should be more patient so that, the British will eventually sanction the Nigerian government, like maybe Alhaji Lai Mohammed, information minister, that kept saying that nobody was killed. Maybe they will end up sanction, the governor of Lagos State. Is that going to really work? Are we serious that they will put a sanction when they are coming out of EU in about 39 days? UK is coming out of EU. And from what I picked up from some of the points I noted there, let me just quickly, put it back again. When the government response was about to be announced by the minister was not on the seat anyway. They are aware of the serious human rights abuse. No sanction was given. We are told to give a bit more time. All right. Okay, let's come back again to the caller. I'm not sure whether it was the one before. Hello, good evening. All right. It seems you are far away from the phone, like you put the phone on the speaker as well. And okay, let's see if we can get you more clearer. All right, go ahead now. The line is very bad, my brother. I'm serious. I can't hear you, and I'm sure if I can't hear you, the rest of the people listening cannot hear you. I'm not sure what is going on, but the line is so poor.
I said what British are trying to
So
do
why were you
Nigeria.
putting the mouth away from the phone? You were like putting your mouth away from the phone. It's much better now.
I don't know how to do it no more.
Okay, now it's better now. Go ahead.
Said what is it?
Go ahead now.
Okay. I don't want to say that what they are trying to do is what they are making for Africa, which they are not going to do what we want. We fight for our rights. Because I want to try we want to fight ourselves for that more. British already anything and what I'm making of what I get from
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. For that. And on that note, I have to bring it down and say thank you very much. They've done their own. It has been debated. We wait for more outcome. As soon as we have it as well, we will bring it out. We appreciate everyone that have called. If you're unable to get through today, you will get through some other time as well. From what we heard there, the UK government is aware of the intimidation. They believe that the Nigerian government must be protecting the civilian. I'm not sure that is going to happen. They gave radio unit to Borno police that end up with the NSAS and has been returned. You know that one is fake news. They cannot return what they've given. If not, it's not in the hands of the Boko Haram. The UK and Nigeria still have a very close relationship. About 200,000 people signed that petition. That shows that every petition that hits about 100,000, we get a kind of debate. About an hour debate or 1.5 hours, but they spent an hour 20 minutes. They had a business conversation on the 18th of November by the Minister of Africa on the round table with some Nigerian businesses. And I believe a lot of people want to sign good deals as the Britain is coming out of EU, and that means they need a better. Maybe your beans will start coming in, from Nigeria. Also, they expect the Nigerian government to investigate all police brutality. Really? Okay. They also said future for Nigeria, a new Nigeria. Some of us might not agree with that, but we have to also understand that more people still believe that a new Nigeria will work, even though I personally disagree that anything called a new Nigeria is a fallacy. It's not going to work. It's all fake until we find out who give us Nigeria. What is the meaning of Nigeria? Until all that can be given to us in a black and white, nothing called Nigeria is one of the empire of the British colonial master. Also, they talk about a real change around. Where is that real change going to come from? From who? Who is going to give the real change? When the Fulani continue to kill and they're about to take more territory. So where is that real change going to happen? They're probably living in a different land entirely. Also, they talk about the corruption. And they say, well, at least, good thing is the E-petition has given opportunity for you to allow them to have a sit down and debate about it. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a very good evening. we continue to update you, some other news as well. Join me again tomorrow, where we continue with Nigeria at the verge of breakup. Mine is to break it completely. I don't care whether NSAS or no NSAS. My position is we must break up Nigeria. But we'll discuss about that at 12 p.m. tomorrow. Make sure you tune in and welcome again and say a very good evening and bye from this end. Nigeria will eventually break one day, whether they like it or not. Bye for now.
All the dry people wanna go. Biafra people wanna go. Location 419 need to break off. Freedom, freedom. Amalgamation in Nigeria, created by the enemy of black men. There, where the black never civilize. Location 9, that is what it is. The country where the leader said the people's glory. They turn gay children to prostitute, and the toy boy children to terrorists. Now, terrorists don't take over. Yoruba people say we know they do again. Say hold the true our nation, that is what we want now. Freedom, 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 freedom. When the fuck they come and free us? Freedom, 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 freedom. Now, location 9 ìlú Boko Haram. Ìlú àwọn hush politician àti S-men. Fake promises every year. Fake miracle everywhere. Fake military anywhere. Now, all the dry people wanna go. Biafra people wanna go. Location 419 need to break off. Freedom, 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 freedom. We need the freedom. Freedom, 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 freedom. Kusina kosomi kosonja kosana kosi security bibi tabi si ha. Free education and audio. Good security na one chance. Over 100 million people don't poor. Mama nigga need a job, they know they see work. They want to go to farm, full and near attack. Don't give me any fucking reason why we no go. Even many people say they wanna go. Freedom, 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 freedom. Freedom, 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 freedom. No back on the road to our republic. I get us over. British came to Africa to come and enslave us, and you call it colonization. You join four nations together and you call it one Nigeria. Who tell you we are one when only Yoruba never get themselves right? But you join us together, even with the people who never think like us. And since then, you damage our culture, you damage our language, and you damage our way of life. Because of your whole greediness. Before one day amalgamation has expired since 2014. Come to Nigeria. Come and separate what you match together as one. We are not one. We can never be one. We don't have the same culture. We don't speak the same language. We just came here from nowhere and match us together. Who make it God over us? We don't know anything about us. We just come here from nowhere and match us together. Since then we never get it right. Nigeria, you know Yoruba educate. As you go to talk, and you are afraid to let Baba in. Amalgamation 419 expire. But it expired like 2014. So Masu, as you go to talk like you are afraid to let Baba in. A fool at 60 is a fool forever. Masu.